And we're back.
And we are back. Where are we? Hi, Jay.
10th. Hello, on the 10th house.
On the 10th house. Sun through the houses. We made it to 10. There's
Well,
2 more to go.
you know what, though? Are you keeping, when you add, oh, I guess you're keeping all of it, because I was going to say, because technically we could try to just run through a bunch of houses today, but then they're uneven because we've
Yeah.
done so much on each house.
Yeah, well, right now it's going to be like 1 video per sun through that house, which is actually nice for people who have that placement because people want to know, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because usually, like, you have a placement, you want to know more about it, and then someone's just talking about it for 2 minutes, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
But this in-depth of it is nice too. And we said we're going to give sun its light of day. We have really given the sun its light of day with these long videos, right?
And it's interesting because it hasn't been sunny for the last couple days.
I know. It feels like fall outside.
We actually turned on the heat for once.
Yeah. But now we're going to the 10th house. But should I give the significations of the sun quickly again on the 10th house?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the sun, key signification at the very top, the biggest concept. It represents the soul, and then consciousness, self, identity, ego, self-concept, center of being. And then in another category, the sun represents light, which is also related to consciousness because it's illuminating our sense of awareness and we're able to experience. So light, visibility, clarity, public life, fame, career. Another category of the sun has to do with governments, governance, authority figures, leaders, people in position of power, because the sun represents that central figure where everything else is orbiting around it, just like the way the sun is in our solar system. And then the last category, it has to do with self-assurance, self-confidence. The sun is a very stable and a stabilizing planet, so it brings a sense of regularity to different domains of life, wherever it is. It's a very reliable planet. And we can see this with the way that it moves through the year. The way it rises and sets is always at the same place, same time on that day of the year. So all of these things are the significations of the sun. And when we come to the 10th house, first thing we have to remember before even doing the significations of the 10th house is that the sun is extremely powerful in the 10th house. And this is because the 10th house represents visibility, is the highest point of the chart. It's in the sector of the chart that is about the public. It is the highest point because we saw the fourth house, which is in the private sector of the chart, is considered the below. The direction of it is called below, and the direction of the 10th house is called the above. The 10th house also is the noon hour where the sun is at its highest position. So the 10th house comes to represent anything that's visible. It's about power, status. It's about fame. This is where things become super visible, and fame is about this. It's about our public life and our careers. And then there's another aspect or category to the 10th house, which has to do with movements. And this is also called the windy house because things are actually able to move in this house. And basically, these are the basic significations of the 10th house.
Career-wise,
yes,
sun would probably be like a government career.
Yeah, here, the sun, it could be government position, of course, but what the sun is denoting in the 10th house, more than anything else, is a position of authority. So the sun is really going to act like the way the sun is in the solar system. It's the center, and everything else is moving and orbiting around it. And not only it's the center, it is the highest position. So symbolically, this does not mean this happens in everybody's chart because we have to read the rest of the chart. What kind of condition is the sun in? But symbolically, in a raw interpretation, this is what the sun is saying in the 10th house. So we have a leader at the highest status or position. We have an authority figure who is at the top position with high status. So these are the things the 10th house is saying.
Okay, so it could be like a CEO or a head of a company, or
yes, a president, king. Yeah, so the 10th house is denoting these kinds of significations. And when the sun comes here, the sun is about visibility. This house is the most visible house from all the houses in the chart. So it's going to make the person visible. And then this is a partial meaning of fame, is to be known, is to be visible, right?
Yeah.
But the fame in the 10th house is also, we'll see that fame like in the 11th house is different than fame in the 10th house. The fame in the 10th house, you are known because of your position of power, because of your authority. And usually what that means is that someone's contributed to something. You know, they've done that climbing, that movement that's in the 10th house.
Mhm.
It's also showing us that we can change our status in the 10th house. We can climb up. There's a sense of movement here. So it's saying these kinds of
Okay.
things.
I was just looking at Prince Charles's thing.
Oh, were you?
He
Okay.
actually he actually has Moon and Rahu in the 10th.
But even if you look at
His son
people,
is aspecting it though. It's in the 4th.
is it? Okay. And look how much he had to be in the shadow of his mother before he could become the king.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
then you look at that, you know, the mother is in the 10th house with Rahu. She she did have an opportunity to relinquish the throne, but she chose to keep it. And then he just had to stay in the background before he could become the king. And it'll be kind of interesting to see what kind of dasha he's in right now that, or when he did become the king, what was it that allowed him to become the king? Yeah, this is another house. We talked about it in the 9th house. I was saying in the previous parts of the chart with some of the houses, we should not put the spotlight on the sun in terms of being the father, because that's one of the primary symbols that people talk about as if the sun only represents the father. But when we come to the 10th house, the sun really represents the father, and the 4th house really represents the mother. And then another interesting point that maybe at the end we can talk about if we get to it, the 10th house represents your mother-in-law. So
Oh God.
it represents the father, but since it's 4th from the 7th, that means it's the 4th house from the 7th house. So we count 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10th house becomes a go away. The 10th house becomes a house of the mother-in-law, but maybe we can talk about that after.
Oh, ouch. Really?
Yeah, so she gets the position of power here, the mother-in-law. But in terms of the father, some of the ways that we can look at this concept of the father and why it was traditionally in astrology and connected to the house of career, for example. First of all, the father was the patriarch of the house, the leader and the authority figure of the house who would go out into the public domain to provide for that other side of the spectrum, which is the 4th house. Secondly, back in the day, for example, people would follow their father's legacy in terms of their career. So the 10th house comes to be connected to such notions. But in general, yeah, the father is representing an authority figure, the status of the patriarch within the household who would be in the public sector and sphere of life. So it's talking about these kinds of concepts too. And you know, when you are in a position of authority as a public figure, you're kind of fathering other people.
Could this also be like, at least in like countries like India where they had a caste system? So it's like you ended up doing the career of whatever, obviously your father, your grandfather, everybody did based on your hierarchy or whatever in society. Or like in today's society, your
But in
dad
the
was a
West too.
doctor. Yeah, like today's society, your dad was a doctor, and you're like, oh, I grew up and kind of went into that same profession. I know a guy, the whole family are accountants, and I know somebody else, the whole family are doctors.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, and then like I think we talked about this in another video too. Like back in the day, someone's last name was, let's say, Smith.
Yeah, yeah.
That was part of their occupation. That was part of their legacy. They're just saying something about how the work is being passed down from generation to generation, their career, right? So yeah, it's got that connotation there. And then the sun is related to career. And then the 10th house symbolizes career. So we can see this great resonance here. So you can find someone who has great ambition with their career. Like some people prioritize relationship. Some people prioritize leisure. Some people are always talking about self-love and what I need to do with myself. That's the 1st house. People who have a heavy loaded 10th house, especially with the sun there, they are very career oriented. This is something that's very important to them. Like I need to make it to the top and I need to be the best and trying to get the highest position. So when you get sun in the 10th house, this becomes a huge deal in a person's life in terms of what matters to them the most. Becomes their life's purpose. The whole concept of a career is where one feels like that's my calling, that's my purpose. So I'm going to act on it every day and I'm going to keep moving upwards. So the sun really permits it when the sun comes into the 10th house. In general, the sun has almost 100% resonance to the 10th house. And as I was saying, in the 7th house, the sun died. In the 8th house, it was generating. In the 9th house, it was getting directional strength. In the 10th house, because this is the highest point of the chart, the sun is at its oomph degree of power. It is very powerful. So it's very difficult to give the sun a negative slant here, unless if it's sitting with some funky planets, bad condition, getting.
What if it's eclipsed by like Rahu then, or Ketu, or whatever?
It's just going to amplify that, right?
Okay.
So Ketu's going to intensify it, and then Rahu's going to amplify it. So the person will have an even greater need in terms of, I need to go towards that career, you know, to
So
a point that it lights, because imagine you put a, you know, I don't know if you ever did that as a kid. You take a magnifying glasses, you let a beam of sun ray, the sun goes through it, and it actually burns things.
Yeah, like ants.
Let's not mention that story, but yes, that.
I know, it's so bad.
Yeah. So when you put Rahu there, is like a magnifying glass, just amplifying it. And this can create problem in other domain of that person's life, in a sense that at the end of the day, if we only come to define the quality and the value of our life based on our career and nothing else, we are in deep, deep trouble. Because that means you neglected your 4th house, for example, right? That's where you actually get support. That's what you get: rest, respite. You get regenerated, you get loved, nurtured. This is where people are actually honest with you. They're not like, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, you know? You need that in life. And people who neglect that and only focus on their career because Rahu's sitting, for example, with the sun, you'll start to see in their life there are glitchy and problematic areas. This is the problem with the nodes when they come and sit with a planet or in a house. It'll make the career super important to the person, but probably at the expense of other things.
Okay, but in general, sun on its own, could it also basically be somebody who's consumed 24/7 at the office?
It could denote a workaholic, but we can't, but we have to remember this. From a raw symbolic interpretation, we can't give the sun a negative slant, especially, I've mentioned this in other videos, the sun is sattvic. So it's trying to stay balanced and life generating and life promoting. But of course, naturally, the sun is not the only signification or planet in a chart. Other things are interacting with it. Then yeah, like let's say you get a sun and a Mars there and make someone super over ambitious. It can make someone a workaholic, someone who will climb the ladder at any expense. Then this sattvic quality of the sun being mixed with this rajasic overactive quality of Mars, too much fire in the 10th house is just too much. The balance gets compromised, right? So yeah, you can have these kinds of dynamics.
And what about fame? Because it's basically sun, fame in the house of fame. Does that kind of almost guarantee you some type of fame?
Nothing's ever guaranteed in a chart, because I can pull up chart from my database and it's like people have these glorious charts, but you don't get these stereotype interpretation as their actual life experiences. Again, because there's an interaction, but as a raw interpretation, yes, the sun is about visibility. This house is the most visible, so the person's going to be known for what they do and in terms of their career.
Okay, but if you're also like, that would also be like hard. Like, I guess this would be a dramatic example. It's like the 10th house Leo and the sun sitting in it, but most of the time most of the time
king at his own throne in his own kingdom.
Okay, but most of the time it's probably not going to be like that. So you're obviously going to have to look at, where did the sun come from to sit there?
No, do you know how many people in this world have and have had sun in Leo in the 10th house and they are not kings, not even close?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You know, so we have to look at the dynamic of a chart. Like sun and Leo will transit, that transit every year will happen once a year for 1 month. That's when the sun's transiting through Leo. But we have to realize in that 30 days, within each day, sun is going through the 10th house every single day. So it's like a lot of people are going to be born with that. But how many people are actually kings today? You know? So no,
Yeah.
those interpretations by themselves rarely ever give you what they mean, those symbols, because of the interaction of the entire chart, the subcharts, all of this. You have to look into it. But it's good to understand that it's denoting power. So even if the person doesn't have it, even if the person is not a king, they may have this inner sense, for example, that I'm destined for fame. I am destined to be like a king. I've heard people say, internally, I have a feeling that I'm a queen or a princess. From my past life, I'm a queen or a princess or a king, you know? So they
I know
might,
some people like that.
yeah, so internally they might have these inclinations and feelings, but it doesn't mean it has an external manifestation. But there is some grain of truth and reality in it, but it might be experienced subjectively rather than visibly out in the world.
Okay, so just because they feel it doesn't mean it's actually going to happen.
I mean, look, I don't know. When I think back in my life, I thought a lot of things were going to happen and they didn't happen. That is kind of,
No, no, but like you said, like I know some people who really probably believe they're reincarnated and they used to be like a
oh
princess or
yeah.
a queen.
Yeah. You know, but there's a theory that says that with karma, everything and every position that has ever been, one has been all of it, and one will be all of it if they haven't. So maybe there's some grain of truth to it in that sense, you know, but I don't know. I mean, this house has a lot to do with power, right? And we human beings, the kind of minds that we have, the way that consciousness that's also related to the sun, we will take the notion of power. If it is something very significant to every human being, I believe every human being would like power, and the word power has gotten distorted to mean something dirty. But power is your will, is that masculine principle that is the sun, which is an active principle that wants to externalize and be active and action oriented, and to be able to be self-governed and self-possessed and have self-authority and autonomy. These are all things that the sun represents. We all have it in ourselves. So we have that power. We want that power. But then all of us will translate that power onto some status, position, or object in the world, of the world. So to a person, it starts to translate in their mind to be powerful, to have this power means I have to be a CEO. Then I have to have this object of the world, like this mansion. These inclination, a lot of times, it might not be because you were a king or a queen, but because your mind has made that association. When kids watch
Okay.
cartoons, for example, it's like suddenly they're soldiers and they're queens and they're kings. People don't think that these things are actually getting entrenched in their psyche and starting to make word and concept associations. And it's getting mapped onto their identity and their desires. So who knows when these seeds were sown? Who knows where they came from or who they came from at what time? But sometimes these inclinations, you can trace it back to such things, you know?
DuckTales. Ooh. You know, did you ever watch that cartoon?
No.
DuckTales, where they used to
Oh,
swim in the,
DuckTales with
yeah, they used to
that
swim in the
Scrooge.
money. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
swim in the money vault.
Oh, yeah, the money vault. Yeah.
DuckTales.
It's
Ooh.
DuckTales, DuckTales. Yeah, yeah, I remember. Oh my God. Yeah,
That must have messed up a lot of kids who wanted money when they're growing up.
yeah, it's so many things like Cinderella. Isn't
Yes.
isn't that a prominent theme? Just be saved by your prince, you know? And then what's
Yeah,
that
yeah.
saying going? Often your prince is just a idiot in aluminum foil. So it's like,
I've never heard that, but yeah, I get it. Or it's like Snow White. She had all these people try to kiss her or something.
yeah, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But
It's
the duck, no, I remember DuckTales because I was like that. They used to swim in the vault of gold coins.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I was a little bit older for DuckTales when it came out, but I remember my sibling, my brother watching it all the time. Yeah, he loved it.
DuckTales.
All is here.
Ooh.
So it's worth mentioning that this is Artha house, and we talked about the other two Artha houses. There are three of them, 2, 6, and 10. And Artha has to do with this concept of wealth building. So you're building stability through the material aspects of the world and stabilizing yourself and your environment and for people around you. And the sun itself represents stability and reliability. And this is the Artha house, which is related to career. So we can generate money. Power generates stability. Status generates stability. The sun itself is a stabilizing factor. So when the sun comes in to the 10th house, it really operationalizes and allows this house to become an Artha house also.
Can you just define an Artha house again? Because I'm sure people won't. I don't know if someone's watching just this video.
It's about building wealth. It's about accumulating material resources and doing something with it. It's about creating stability through the material aspects of the world. So there are the 4 goals of life. We had our dharma, which was about having a purpose and a moral integrity. Once when you get that part, then you can go to the Artha aspect of life. And if you don't have this dharma aspect, like the moral component, you're going to build wealth through the most devastating ways to yourself, to other people, to the environment, to society. So you need to have that moral fiber, that moral integrity, that's dharma. Once when you got that straight, the world expects you to actually go out and make the material components of the world to create pillars of strength and pillars that can uphold other people and support other people. Like if you think about it, all of us need money to be able to eat and to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that Artha component is a fundamental aspect of life and we can't neglect it. It's very important. And then once when you have the Artha part right, that's when existence comes and says, okay, child, now you can have karma. You have moral integrity. You made the material, the money aspect of your life right. Now you're allowed to enjoy it. And because you have moral integrity, you're going to enjoy it the right way, for example, right? You know how much, you know your limits and bounds. You're not going to be excessive and overindulgent, you know, but the 10th house is the Artha house where you're supposed to actually build, generate money, create the material aspects of this world. And the purpose of it is to do it with integrity. And sun understands this concept of dharma in itself too. So the sun in the 10th house is saying something about a person, raw interpretation, that they're not going to do it through harming other people, jeopardizing other people. They're going to do it the right way. So that fame aspect of the 10th house also relates to this. You are famous and you are known for something significant that you've done. You have become a pillar of strength for other people where other people now orbit you. This is what it's trying to say. It's not frivolous fame. Like I'm famous because I show my buttocks.
That was so like pronounced. Okay.
Huh?
Yeah, that was just the way you said that.
I was trying to put a little spin of a British accent to it for human buttocks. But
it almost sounded like more of a what's it called, the Persian accent.
did it? Buttocks?
Yeah, the way you said it.
Buttocks. Buttocks. I don't know. But okay, here's the word buttocks.
Okay, so basically you're not just famous for your body, you're famous for your contributions to society.
Yes.
Or what.
Yes. Other people can rely on you. There's a significance to your existence and to your being and what you do where it's sustaining other people, just like the sun. I mean, kick the sun out of the solar system and the chaos, like every planet would just collide into each other. Even if it's light dims, we're all going to be frozen within a matter of hours, if maximum a day or two. We're all pretty much frozen and we're dying. When we're talking about the fame in the 10th house, we're talking about a human being who is contributing and who's sustaining something very significant.
And this is the chart, this is the section of the chart that's basically about society.
Yeah, it's a public sector of the chart because we saw in the 9th house, how do we benefit society? And as we'll see in the 11th house is how do we enjoy what is within society? There's a kind of a, now how do we get to enjoy this component, like the cultural aspect of it and the social aspect of it. Yeah, so the houses 9, 10, and 11 are very much related to society in general.
Okay, but then is that like you make the money in the 10th so you can enjoy it in the 11th?
Yeah. 11th is a karma house. So after Artha comes karma, right? And then the 12th house becomes the moksha where you better be ready to let it all go because you're enlightened and you actually don't need that. You have surpassed that, past that. But yeah, the 10th house denotes such things. And then another thing to remember about the 10th house, because of that stabilizing factor and the power factor that's in this chart, is also talking about our social institutions like governments, nation states. So we're talking about big, powerful social bodies like governments, parliaments. What other parliaments was the other one called? Senates? I don't know, things of this nature. We're talking about those government structures are in the 10th house. The government itself is in the 10th house. That's why whenever some planets go into the 10th house, the first automatic interpretation is government job, because it's talking about that body of power that's stabilizing society. But it's kind of funny because it has all of this power and has a stabilizing quality, and at the same time this house also has movement in it. But the way to see it is the structure is big, it's powerful because of its enormousness, which is also a representation of its power. Within that structure there's movement. So it's not free flow movement, move anywhere like the 12th house, the expanse of the infinite space. It's not like that. It's still contained, but it's a powerful, big structure.
I don't know. I've heard from some people when they're looking at analyzing a country chart, you're going to look at where the sun is more so.
That's their degree of power and vitality. Okay. It's the soul of that country, is the consciousness of that country, is their sense of self for that country. Because we individually have this, but when we look at every country, if we kind of zoom out of it and take the whole of it into consideration, they all have a personality. A country, based on all of its makeup, the people, the different ethnic group, their religion, the way their political, economic structure is built, they have a kind of a personality. We can conceptualize it that way. They have a kind of a consciousness, a kind of a self. And which planet denotes all of these things? The sun. So yes, you're going to look at the sun to see what kind of a country this is. You do the same thing for a person. I was saying that with our first video that we started. I want to give the sun its light of day because the sun is not just the father. The sun is the entirety of a person, from their sense of soul to consciousness to self-concept, all of it. So yeah, when it comes to countries too, you can apply the same rule. Because they are an entity, just like corporations. Corporations are an entity or a person. They are a kind of a sun where everything now orbits around that entity. So yeah, governments have this, countries have this, corporations have this, and of course humans and other beings that are alive have this. Yeah.
Okay. But because I was just wondering, because I guess to see how strong a country is, you would kind of have to look at that level of the sun.
Sure. What do you mean by strong? Because the strength, you would actually look at Mars, for example.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because the sun is not denoting strength per se. Like, it's strong enough to be reliable. You have to be a very strong person to be reliable. It's stable. Like, there are countries that are stable. There are some countries that are just a hot mess. It's like everything's just, there's too many moving parts. It's unstable. So the sun has a certain kind of a strength that can create these kinds of environments. But strength by itself is a signification of Mars. So I'm not sure how you're defining strength per se.
Yeah, I don't mean, I guess, like to go to war and stuff. I always just thought if you're looking at a country's chart in order to, I guess, just see their power, their like maybe in the world, like world order or something, like their sun is significant of how it's placed, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, the significance of it, the power of it, the authority.
Yeah, so maybe the word was power, not strength. Yeah.
Like the authority of it. Yeah, these kinds of things come from the sun. And
so if you have a sun, so if you have a sun sitting in the 10th in a country's chart, like they're pretty powerful, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it makes them powerful. They have an authority in some domain, and then you can find out what that domain is based on the rest of the chart. Other people will orbit them based on some particular domain. Again, you have to look at the whole chart. But yeah, it's indicating power and authority, and it's stabilizing component, or these are the things you can get from the sun.
So is that still also with an individual? If they have a sun, a prominent sun or a well-placed sun in the 10th, does that mean the rest of their planets almost orbit? Like that's the focus for them?
When someone's a beginner, their first glance will go to the sun, I mean, to the ascendant, and then either the sun or the moon. Another way to look at this through practice is to pretend all the other planets don't exist, just the sun and the moon. Understand where the moon is relative to the sun, for example.
Where the moon is, okay, like how far it's gone away or whatever.
Or coming to. So it's coming to a new moon, a full moon. What phase of the moon are we talking about? Actually, these two factors of the chart will tell you so much about someone's life process of where they're beginning in this life and how it's supposed to unfold.
Okay, so wait, back that up. So you have the sun in the 10th, and let's just say you have moon in the 3rd. So you're saying by just looking at those two planets, so how would you do that? So moon is going how many places? Like what would you do?
It's 6th place. So okay, look, let's just make it a little bit easy. Let's say you have the moon, sun's in the 10th house and moon's in the 11th house, right? So we're talking about a new moon, just right after the new moon. So, and it's the new moon. And because the moon is past the sun, for example, it's talking about this person is initiating. They got the message of the consciousness from the sun. Now the mind and the body is going to go and have that experience in this life. So it has initiated and has begun their journey, right? Now they have to go through pretty much the entire chart to come back to the 10th house where the sun is. Now the mind, body, soul, consciousness, all of it are going to be lined up, and the person can be like, all right, I served my purpose in this life. I'm done. Okay. Now the moon is, let's say, in the 9th house and the sun's in the 10th house. So you're coming into a new moon. You're just one sign away to having the moon and the sun conjunct in the 10th house. This person in this lifetime, it's almost something akin to tying some loose ends and concluding some soul or life journey. And this will be a theme in a lot of different parts of their life. You know, they'll feel like they've done it a million times, but they just got to do it this one last time to just complete this mission. To get it accomplished. When the moon and the sun are conjunct is a brand new moon. So they're both in the 10th house, close to degrees, to exact degrees. So this is literally a new initiation. The person's going to face a lot of unknowns in this life, and they're going to have to figure it out. Moon opposing the sun. So it's in the 4th house. This is a full moon. So this person's sense of balance, for example, between their domestic and private sphere relative to their work and public sphere life is going to be balanced. Do you know what I mean? Like that sun in the 10th house is going to become very functional in this way. The mind is fully illuminated. Consciousness and mind are both lit. This person has a great sense of direction. They can direct their mind and body towards where consciousness is. So these are the kinds of things you're going to have to look at to understand, like one of the factors for understanding what the sun is doing in a chart.
Okay, but that's obviously someone who has practice, or like, do you teach this in your courses?
Yeah, it's one of the topics. Moon's phases are super important. We're not talking about the moon right now, but yeah, moon's phases, because the moon, look, every planet, for example, has 2 signs, right? Except the sun and the moon. They have 1 house each. Why is that? Because they're a pair that actually work together at all time. What is consciousness without a mind and a body? Who's experiencing it without a mind and a body? You're kind of talking like a God figure, right? In terms of being a human, you need a mind and a body. For that consciousness, the sun, to be able to have an experience is having it through the mind and the body, which is the moon. So you can't separate them. And then what is the mind and the body without a consciousness? You're basically just, let's say, in a coma and having 0 experiences because there's no experiencer. The consciousness is not there. So the sun and the moon, if you want to understand what the sun is doing in any part of your chart, you have to see what the moon is doing. What is the relationship of the moon to the sun? So this is a very important factor to understand.
Is that something you learn kind of in the beginning, or is that like kind
in
of
astrology?
Yeah.
No, you have to become a little bit versed. It's like intermediate. It's not fully advanced either, because you should know this. By the time you get to the advanced points of astrology, you're dealing with ideas where this concept's incorporated, so you better know it by now, but it's not exactly beginners either, you know?
It's like the sun is just sitting in the moon, like say 10th house sun, but it's in Cancer, or vice versa. Moon is sitting in Leo, because you're talking about the connection. Like in order to understand the sun, you should understand the moon. So
yeah,
if the
but
sun
you're
is
mixing
sitting,
up the signs and the houses right now. So you mean the sun's sitting in the 10th house and the moon's in the 4th house? Because we're talking about houses.
oh, okay, yeah.
Is that what you mean? Yeah. What
Back in
about it when that happens? That's a full
So
moon.
does that, okay. And that's what you were talking about, that it's going to get it to direct it to.
The conscious intent is illuminated in the mind so the body can follow. It's the moon is fully lit. So the day is lit. The sun on the noon hour is at its strongest point. It's right above us. And think about it. If you put the light, if I have a light bulb in my hand, if I put it behind me, it's going to cast a shadow forward, right? If I have a light bulb, bring it in front of me, it's going to cast my shadow behind me. If I have a light here right above my head, I'm not going to cast a shadow. I am as clear as I can be. This is a sun in the 10th house. It does not cast shadow. It's like its authority is not casting a shadow. It's what you see is what you get, and it's super powerful, and it's lit, and you can just see it. Now we go to the nighttime. The 4th house represents midnight, 12 o'clock midnight. The 10th house is 12 o'clock noon. It's pitch dark outside. You can't see anything. And if there's no light at all, you're going to bump into things. It's like you're walking in the world of shadows. But when you have a fully lit moon, even the night is lit for you. So you can even see through the shadow.
Yeah.
You can see the way even in the land of shadows. Now they're both lit on both sides of the chart. This is illuminating the way for the person throughout this life. This is a good thing. You're not trying to figure your way out in the darkness and through the illusions that a shadow casts.
Yeah. So it's obviously a good thing. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're saying anywhere the sun is, in order to really understand, or vice versa, you need to look at the other.
Yeah, sun and the moon are always a pair anyway.
So it's kind of like Rāhu Ketu.
Yeah, they're a pair too.
Yeah.
Except that they're a pair that they're always 180 degrees apart from each other, no matter what. Yeah, that's the difference between them, but they're a pair. And then I don't know, while we're here, just in case someone's been watching all the videos, when we talked about the 4th house and the 5th house, for example, the natural house of the sun, the king, this luminous one, is the 5th house. And then the moon has the 4th house. The moon's real estate is a hell of a lot better than sun's real estate. Moon has an anchor point, a primary part of the chart. And then the sun has a 5th house, a sub part. And I was saying, when you come to the 5th house, it becomes a love house. You can almost conceptualize the sun as the lover of the moon. It's kind of given its best real estate to its wife. Do you know what I mean? Because we are talking about like a husband and a wife kind of a dynamic as an expression, you know? So yeah, the sun and the moon are always a pair in a chart. And wherever the sun is, and in this case, we're talking about the 10th house, is worth looking at where the moon is and where it is in its phase relative to the sun. It's telling us a lot. And one way to get very good at this concept or this technique, and I was saying in another video, the day you are good at astrology is the day that your chart becomes impersonal to you. And then you can get very good at understanding this concept by tracking the movement of the sun and the moon through the transit, because they're always moving. And then watch world events. Watch events in your own life, not even the chart of a person or a chart of a country. Just watch the climate of the day. It will tell you a lot. You know, if you take the nakshatra series into consideration, for example, they have the tarabolas, which is the phases of the moon through the nakshatras, and they anchor themselves again. So this concept of the moon is super important. It's one that is in every system of astrology in different ways, and it's worth understanding it as much as possible. But we got into the moon topic, which is appropriate. Maybe we'll start moon through the houses, and that's the next series.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Actually, I'm like, oh, we haven't even talked about the moon.
No, moon's a
you must be you wrote about the moon.
Yeah, super.
So I mean, you must be attached to the moon or something. Because
well, I'm in my moon dasha, so I think I'm by fate at the moment connected to the moon. Everything related to the moon.
And did you write that book during?
Yes.
This okay.
Yeah. Back to the 10th house. What else can we talk about?
Could it ever be bad? Like, what if it's in poor dignity or it's combust or because I know you said usually you would
The
in a
sun
general.
combust? The sun can't
No,
do.
sorry. Yeah, the sun is combusting, but I mean, is there a way that the sun can act badly in the 10th house?
The sun, all the planets can act badly in every house if they are not strong, debilitated,
Okay, so in the
badly
10th,
aspected.
would that be like a weak leader?
It will be a corrupt leader because you will still have
Oh, politicians.
because this is still a house of power. You still
Okay.
have status, and the sun's representing authority. So you still have it, but it's corrupted. So you can get a dictator out of this, for example. You can get, yeah,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah,
Okay, so you
it
still
doesn't
have
take away
power.
its power, right? It doesn't, because there's such a resonance in this house. We can't say the sun is going to be weak. Even if sun is debilitated in the 10th house, still powerful. It still has authority,
Okay, so a
you know?
dictate like you're still your power, you're not losing the power. You just might
No.
be, like you said, corrupt, dictatorish.
Yes, you have fame for the wrong reasons. Your fame will get you into trouble, for example. It will reveal something about you, for example. Yeah, like having this house representing the father and the sun representing the father. So you still have a powerful father, but the sun is in low dignity and it's weak. It's acting all dysfunctional. You have an overwhelming power. I mean, overwhelming a father. That's what
Hmm.
happens. Is like sometimes you don't want to, there are some people who are super wealthy, well-to-do, and
Horrible parents.
but no, that intergenerational thing is very important to them. So they want their son and their daughter to take over their corporation, and the
Yeah.
kid just wants to be a painter. It's like my brain doesn't even wrap around these things. And then they're just overwhelmed through their entire lifetime. You can get these kinds of dynamics. You get that kind of a father in the 10th house. When the father is in good condition and the son's in good condition and is denoting a good father, this is a parent who will take you into the public domain of life and teach you the tools of the trade. They're supposed to give you confidence. They're supposed to let you know, hey, child, this is how the world works, because they're taking you out of that fourth house private sphere of life where you're getting your initial socialization. Now someone's got to teach you the ropes of how things work out in the world. So the son, a good father, is able to incrementally show you this and introduce you to the world so you know how to do that. And when you know how to do that, then you're comfortable in a career. There are a lot of people who have a hard time working out there. That graduation process from the private sphere to the public sphere didn't happen properly. Our education system's supposed to do that to some extent too, right? But
Yeah.
traditionally, this was designated to the father.
Okay, so if you have a father that's just kind of more doesn't actually like guide you through it properly, they're just more like, you've got to, this is what you're doing. This, like, get in there, you're my son or daughter or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't in Canada when this rule would have applied, and we didn't have this concept in Iran, but I don't know if they still do it, but there was this tradition where the father would take their kids to their workplace.
Oh yeah, like in elementary school and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You know how there's casual Fridays where you can wear like casual clothes
Yeah.
to work? There was like a father and child day, father and I don't know, father, daughter, father, son kind of day where they would take their kids to work and it was allowed. And this is kind of like an introduction. This is what daddy does. This is how daddy works, you know?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So today, that daddy could also be a mummy, but back in the day where these traditional symbolism come from, this is kind of what it's saying too, right? The father figure is supposed to show you that aspect of life.
Well, I guess they also say like the father figure traditionally is supposed to guide you through life, right? Like how to just be a lot of the times.
Yeah, we live in a climate today where talking about gender roles is something that we resist wrapping our minds around, which is fine. But in the symbolic world, we have to understand that they're talking about certain kind of archetypes, right? And the rule must still apply in order for our brains to comprehend what we're talking about. The mother archetype pulls you in to her bosom. I'm using very like archaic words tonight, buttocks
Mhm.
and bosom.
Yeah.
But But the mother figure is supposed to pull you in, hold you, protect you, nurture you, love you. They're supposed to socialize you on how to be a human being who doesn't just poop and pee everywhere, you know, just understand what it means to be human. That's what a mother does. The father archetype is supposed to take you from the mother's bosom and is supposed to, because it's an externalizing principle, the father archetype, it is supposed to take you and push you out into the world. And there are a lot of these archetypal narratives that eventually the son will go to war with their father to get their independence. Because there are some fathers who don't actually push their sons eventually. They'll take him out into the wilderness and then they want to rule over the son. So the son is like, hell no. In the stories of the sun and Saturn, Saturn's constantly trying to destroy the sun. In Western astrology, we got Uranus and Kronos, which is Saturn. Saturn kills his own father, and then Jupiter kills his own father, which is Saturn. So there are all these narratives from all around the world where we have this concept. But yeah, we have to understand the mother archetype is about pulling in and protecting in this way. And the father archetype is supposed to take you out and eventually release you so you become your own son, you know? So
Yeah.
we kind of have to understand these stereotype symbols to be able to understand what these symbols are trying to convey, even in terms of movement. One's internal, one's external. Mother's internal, father's external. The 10th house is an external house. The 4th house is an internal house. The sun is external. The moon's internal. If we don't understand these dynamics, we can't do proper symbolic interpretation. So yeah, the sun in the 10th house is all about externalization. I'm externalizing my power. I'm externalizing my authority. Fame is kind of like diffusing your light all over the place, making yourself lit, you're known. Yeah. So it's like full on resonance. It's so much resonance that it's almost talk to talk. It's hard to talk too much about the sun in the 10th house, unless if we get to like very specific situations, right? All right, I think enough was said about the 10th house. What do you think?
Yeah, and I'm sure, like you said, things always come up, and maybe in the 11th house we end up talking about the 10th part of the lead. I mean, you kind of blend them all through the videos.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if
and
something
then
comes up,
we're going to talk about other planets through the houses too. So when it comes, we always randomly get into other discussions too. So if someone's following us along and joining us on these conversations, there's things are always going to come up because they
yeah.
always.
And if anyone has questions, put them down in the comments.
Yes, yes.
Should probably do a live series session one day.
That would be nice. We'll do that. All right, that's it for today. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Much love. Till next time.